There's a kind of woman you can't forget, not because of her beauty, not because of her style, but because of the way she makes you feel without even trying. Carl Jung believed that true attraction has little to do with surface and everything to do with the soul's energy. The question is, do you have the habits that make a man's mind, heart, and spirit lock onto you? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might completely change the way you see yourself and the way others see you forever. There's a woman you've met, maybe once in your life, maybe a few times, who you couldn't quite forget. She might not have been the most beautiful by conventional standards, but there was something about her, something you couldn't name. You found yourself remembering the way she looked at you, the way she spoke, the calm in her presence. She didn't need to try, yet the room shifted when she entered. This isn't luck. This isn't chance. It's the result of habits so subtle, most people miss them entirely. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who studied the human mind with almost surgical precision, understood this better than anyone. He believed that attraction, true attraction, is not built on surface-level charm, but on psychological depth. It's about the way a woman's habits unconsciously awaken something in others. Something ancient, something magnetic. You see, we live in a world obsessed with quick fixes, 10-second beauty hacks, overnight confidence tricks. But what Jung discovered is timeless. These 6 habits aren't makeup, clothes, or perfectly rehearsed lines. They are ways of being. They don't just make a woman noticed. They make her unforgettable. And once you understand them, you'll see why certain women become a gravitational pull in every room they enter. Think about it. When someone walks past you, what do you notice first? Sure, there's appearance. But if you pay closer attention, there's an energy, a kind of signal that either invites you in or leaves you unmoved. Jung believed these signals are not random. They are cultivated through consistent habits that express a woman's true self without her even realizing it. And when these habits are present, they bypass logic and speak straight to the unconscious mind, the part of us that decides who we trust, who we follow, and who we can't stop thinking about. So this isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's not about mimicking confidence or copying behaviors you saw in a movie. It's about understanding the psychology of attraction at its root, and realizing that the most magnetic women are those who live in deep alignment with themselves. Jung would say they have integrated parts of their personality most people are still hiding from. That's why they feel so real, so rare, so irresistible. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what these 6 habits are, why they work on such a primal level, and most importantly, whether you already have them, or if they're the missing piece to the way you carry yourself. Because here's the truth, the most attractive woman in the room is rarely the one everyone notices first. She's the one everyone remembers last. And after this, you'll know why. The first habit is deep self-awareness. A woman who knows herself doesn't need to convince anyone of her worth because she isn't waiting for outside approval to confirm it. Jung taught that we are often strangers to ourselves, living out patterns we don't even notice. But when a woman truly sees herself, her strengths, her flaws, her fears, her desires, she stops playing games for validation. Her confidence isn't loud or aggressive, it's steady, like an unshakable ground under your feet. People feel that. They can sense when a woman is rooted in her own identity. She doesn't get easily swayed by trends, gossip, or the changing moods of others. She's anchored in truth, and that stability becomes magnetic. The second habit is emotional presence. We live in a distracted world. Most people are half here, half somewhere else, scrolling on their phones, planning the next thing, barely listening. But when a woman gives you her full attention, when she is actually present in the moment, it feels almost sacred. Jung believed presence is a rare form of power because it makes others feel seen, and feeling seen is one of the deepest human needs. She listens not just with her ears, but with her whole being. Her eyes don't wander, her mind doesn't drift. She's there with you, and in that moment, nothing else matters. The third habit is emotional sovereignty, the ability to regulate her own emotions without spilling them all over the room. This doesn't mean she's cold or detached. It means she's in control. Jung would call this integration, the conscious and unconscious parts of the self working together. She doesn't use anger to manipulate. She doesn't collapse into self-pity. She doesn't weaponize silence. Instead, she knows how to sit with her feelings, process them, and express them in a way that invites respect rather than chaos. That emotional maturity is rare, and it commands both trust and attraction. The fourth habit is authentic expression. There's a freedom in being yourself without the constant need to perform. Many women hide their true selves because they fear judgment or rejection. But Jung knew that what we repress doesn't disappear. It leaks out in unhealthy ways. The irresistible woman has made peace with who she is. She can laugh at her own quirks, admit when she's wrong, and speak her mind without cruelty. She doesn't dilute herself to fit in, nor does she make herself larger than life to be noticed. She lives in the sweet spot, unapologetically herself, but always growing. The fifth habit is mystery through depth. Notice, this is not about being secretive or playing hard to get. It's about having an inner world that others can sense but never fully map. Jung often spoke about the depths of the psyche, and the truth is, the most magnetic people are those who live in connection with that depth. They have passions, ideas, and layers you can discover over time. Conversations with them feel like peeling back petals of a flower that never fully opens. And you don't want it to, because the beauty is in the discovery. A woman like this doesn't reveal everything all at once, not because she's withholding, but because her life is too rich to fit into a single conversation. The sixth habit is embodied energy. This is the way she moves, the way she breathes, the way she carries herself through the world. It's not about fitting a beauty standard. It's about being fully alive in her own body. Jung understood that the mind and body are deeply connected, and when a woman moves with self-possession, when she walks like she belongs in the space she's in, people notice. Her gestures are intentional, her touch is deliberate, her posture communicates openness and strength. She doesn't shrink herself to take up less space, nor does she puff herself up to dominate it. She simply owns it. When these six habits come together, they form something rare. Not a performance, not a facade, but a lived reality. This is why you can meet a woman like this once and remember her for years. She doesn't chase attention, yet attention follows her. She doesn't beg for love, yet love gravitates toward her. Jung would say this is the power of individuation, becoming so fully yourself that you no longer live through borrowed identities. The irresistible woman is not perfect, and she doesn't try to be. Instead, she is whole, and wholeness, more than beauty, more than charm, more than status, is what makes her unforgettable. So the question is, are you her? Or are you still shaping yourself into what you think others want you to be? Because the truth is, these habits are not gifts you're either born with or without. They're choices practiced daily until they become who you are. And once they do, you won't need to chase the right people, the right opportunities, the right love, They will find you. They say beauty catches the eye, but depth captures the soul. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you met someone who looked stunning at first glance, only for the impression to fade as soon as they spoke, as soon as their energy revealed something shallow or restless underneath? Now compare that to the memory of a person you couldn't stop thinking about, even if you couldn't pinpoint why. They had something different, something timeless. And when Carl Jung studied human behavior and relationships, he found that this kind of attraction isn't an accident. It's built on a foundation of psychological habits, ways of living that bypass the surface and speak directly to the unconscious mind. Jung believed that our unconscious is far more powerful than we realize. It's the silent decision maker behind who we feel drawn to, who we trust, and who we remember. You can't fake it, because the unconscious can't be tricked for long. This is why a woman who has mastered these 6 habits doesn't need to try hard. She becomes naturally magnetic. And it's not magic, it's psychology. Let's start with the first habit, deep self-awareness. Imagine you walk into a room filled with people. Most are subtly scanning, wondering, do I fit in here? Do people like me? Am I enough? You can feel that insecurity in the air. But then, in the corner, there's a woman who isn't fidgeting, isn't over-smiling, isn't scanning the room for validation. She's simply there, comfortable in her own skin. That's self-awareness in action. Jung taught that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. A self-aware woman has looked into her own shadows. She knows her strengths without arrogance and her weaknesses without shame. That kind of groundedness is rare and irresistibly attractive because it feels safe, authentic, and real. The second habit, emotional presence, is like oxygen in a world starved for attention. Most people are physically present but mentally elsewhere, trapped in their own thoughts or glued to their devices. But when someone gives you their full attention, it's almost intoxicating. There's a story about Jung himself that when you spoke to him, you felt like you were the only person in the world. His eyes, his attention, his mind, all of it was with you in that moment. A woman who masters emotional presence makes others feel valued without saying a word. She listens, not just to respond, but to understand. And that is deeply magnetic because it makes people feel truly seen. Then comes the third habit, emotional sovereignty. Jung often spoke about integration, the union of the conscious and unconscious self. A woman who has done this work is not ruled by emotional storms. She feels deeply, but she is not carried away by those feelings. She doesn't lash out to punish, nor does she crumble for sympathy. She has learned to sit with her emotions until they've softened enough to be expressed with clarity. This is a kind of power that doesn't roar, but it's felt by everyone around her. People respect it because they can trust it. In a world where emotional reactivity is common, her calm becomes a rare and attractive force. The fourth habit, authentic expression, is perhaps one of the most freeing. Jung warned that what we repress doesn't disappear, it hides in the shadows, only to come out in unexpected ways. The woman who expresses herself authentically doesn't hide her true nature to fit a mold. She can admit when she's wrong, laugh at herself, and speak her truth without cruelty. She doesn't perform for approval. And that authenticity is magnetic because it signals to others that she is trustworthy. People feel safe around someone who isn't wearing a mask. The fifth habit, mystery through depth, is not about being deliberately elusive or manipulative. It's about having an inner life so rich that others can sense there's always more to discover. Jung said, The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. A woman with depth transforms conversations. She shares enough to connect, but not so much that nothing is left to explore. She has passions, ideas, and dreams that are not all on display. The more you get to know her, the more you realize how much more there is to know, and that keeps people drawn to her. And finally, the sixth habit, embodied energy. This is the non-verbal language of presence. It's how she moves through the world. She doesn't shrink to take up less space, nor does she inflate herself to dominate it. She owns her place in it. Jung understood that mind and body are inseparable. When a woman feels at home in her body, others can feel it. Her movements are deliberate, her posture open, her energy grounded. She radiates a quiet confidence that says, "I belong here." That energy lingers long after she's gone. Now, here's the key. These habits are not surface tricks. They can't be applied like makeup and removed at night. They are cultivated from the inside out. Jung would remind us that true magnetism comes from individuation, becoming so fully yourself that you no longer need to borrow your identity from others. The irresistible woman is not perfect. She's whole, and wholeness is what calls people toward you without you needing to chase. Maybe you're listening to this and realizing you already have some of these habits. Or maybe you see where you've been hiding, shrinking, or performing. The beautiful thing is, all of these can be developed. And as you do, you'll notice something shift. You won't have to compete for attention. You won't have to force connections. You'll find that the right people are drawn to you naturally. Not because you demanded their attention, but because you became the kind of person who doesn't need to. So the question remains, are you her? And if not yet, are you willing to become her? Because once you do, you won't just attract more, you'll attract better. They say beauty turns heads, but depth turns souls. Beauty may earn a glance, but depth earns a memory. That's what Carl Jung understood better than most. That what truly makes someone magnetic isn't the surface, it's what lives beneath it. And yet, we live in a world that constantly tells women their worth is in what can be seen, measured, and liked. But the women who live by that script often burn out, because attention gained from the surface fades as soon as the next distraction comes along. Jung studied human attraction at its core and found that the qualities that make someone unforgettable are deeply psychological. They speak to the unconscious, the part of the mind that's always watching, always feeling, always deciding. Even when we're not aware of it, the unconscious picks up on signals that can't be faked for long. Confidence that's not forced, presence that's not performed, self-worth that's not borrowed. And that's why the first habit, deep self-awareness, is so powerful. Imagine two women entering the same room. The first one is well dressed, flawless on the outside, but every glance she throws around the room is a silent question. Do you approve of me? The second woman may not be wearing the most expensive clothes, but she moves with the ease of someone who isn't asking anyone's permission to exist. That's the woman people remember. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Self-awareness means you've faced your own shadows, you've made peace with them, and you no longer let them run your life from behind the scenes. That's what makes people feel safe around you. Safety is magnetic because the world is full of instability. The second habit, emotional presence, is even rarer today. Picture a conversation where someone is speaking to you, but their eyes keep darting to their phone, their thoughts clearly elsewhere. You don't feel valued, you feel tolerated. Now imagine the opposite. Someone leans in slightly, their eyes on yours, no rush in their voice, no impatience in their body. You feel like you matter. Jung believed that attention is one of the greatest gifts you can give another person, because it affirms their existence. Women who master presence don't just make people feel heard, they make them feel understood. And that's an emotional experience most people will chase for years. The third habit, emotional sovereignty, is like a lighthouse in a storm. In relationships, emotions are contagious. If one person panics, the other often catches it. But a woman who owns her emotions instead of being owned by them becomes a stabilizing force. She can feel disappointment without making it someone else's fault. She can express hurt without destroying connection. Jung called this individuation, the integration of all parts of the self into a whole. People are drawn to this because it's rare to find someone who can feel deeply and still think clearly. It inspires trust, and trust is the foundation of any lasting attraction. The fourth habit, authentic expression, is like a breath of fresh air in a room full of recycled opinions. Jung warned that what we hide will eventually control us. A woman who expresses herself truthfully is not reckless, she's real. She doesn't water herself down to fit someone else's idea of acceptable, nor does she overcompensate with drama. She speaks with sincerity, and her words carry weight because they come from a place of self-trust. That authenticity invites others to drop their own masks. And that kind of connection, where you feel you can be yourself without judgment, is unforgettable. The fifth habit, mystery through depth, is what keeps people leaning in. And no, this is not about playing games or withholding for the sake of control. It's about having an inner life so rich that no one could possibly discover all of it in one meeting, or even 1 year. Jung often compared the psyche to a deep well. You can keep drawing from it, and it will never run dry. The irresistible woman has stories, interests, and passions that she doesn't parade for attention. They're simply part of who she is. Every conversation feels like discovering another layer, and the more you discover, the more you want to know. That's how people get hooked, not on artifice, but on depth. The sixth habit, embodied energy, is the silent communicator. Before you say a word, your body is already telling a story. Does your posture shrink or expand? Do your movements signal openness or defensiveness? Jung believed that our physical presence is an extension of our inner state. A woman who feels comfortable in her own body moves differently. She's not rushing through life apologetically, nor is she overcompensating to prove her value. She's simply here, grounded, inhabiting herself fully. That's attractive on a level people can't explain, because it's felt more than it's seen. Here's the truth, these 6 habits are not quick tricks. They can't be learned overnight. They are the result of deep inner work, the kind that requires honesty, patience, and courage. And yet, every single one of them can be developed. You don't have to be born with them, you build them. And when you do, something powerful happens. You stop chasing. Opportunities find you. The right people find you. And the ones who can't meet you where you are quietly fall away. Jung would say this is the reward of becoming whole, because the most irresistible woman isn't trying to be irresistible at all. She's too busy living in alignment with herself. And that, my friend, is the kind of beauty that never fades. So, are you her? And if not, will you choose to become her? There's a coffee shop I go to sometimes. It's small, with worn wooden tables and the quiet hum of the espresso machine in the background. One morning, I noticed 2 women in line. One was dressed sharply, scrolling on her phone. tapping her foot impatiently. The other stood quietly, holding her cup, completely unbothered by the line's slow movement. She looked around, not in judgment, but in curiosity. When she finally spoke to the barista, she smiled warmly, asked how their morning was going. I watched the barista's face light up. That's deep self-awareness in motion. She wasn't trying to impress. She wasn't performing. She was simply grounded, comfortable in her skin, comfortable in the moment. And because she wasn't trying to get attention, she got it naturally. Now, think about emotional presence. There's a story I heard from a man who once met his mentor at a crowded event. Music playing, people laughing, conversations everywhere. And yet, when he spoke to this man, it felt like the whole room disappeared. That man's eyes were locked on his, not in a creepy way, but in a way that said, "I'm here with you." No rushing to end the conversation. No scanning the room for someone more interesting. Just pure attention. Jung would say that kind of presence is a rare form of love, and women who can give it are unforgettable. Then there's emotional sovereignty. A friend of mine once told me about a date that could have gone wrong. Midway through dinner, the waiter spilled water on her lap. Instead of snapping, rolling her eyes, or letting the moment ruin the night, she smiled and reassured him it was fine. She excused herself, handled it calmly, and came back as if nothing happened. That grace left a mark on him. Not because she was pretending to be unaffected, but because she chose not to let a small mishap control her emotions. Jung would call that integration, the ability to respond, not react. Authentic expression is another one you can't fake. I remember meeting a woman at a networking event. Everyone else was giving these polished, almost robotic introductions. When it was her turn, she laughed softly and said, "Honestly, I'm figuring it out. I love what I do, but I'm still learning where I'm going." You could feel the relief in the room. Finally, someone who wasn't performing perfection. She wasn't less respected for her honesty. If anything, people trusted her more, because authenticity always outlasts pretense. Now, mystery through depth. Jung would say we're all drawn to the unknown, to what hints at more beneath the surface. I once met a woman at a dinner party. She was warm, engaging, but she didn't tell her entire life story in the first conversation. She spoke about her love for painting, her travels, and then she'd pause, asking questions about others. You could tell there was more to her, but she didn't rush to reveal it. That's not playing hard to get. That's living a life rich enough that it can't be unpacked in a single sitting. It leaves people curious. And curiosity is fuel for attraction. And then there's embodied energy. I saw this on a rainy day in the city. Everyone was rushing, heads down, trying to avoid the downpour. But there was this one woman, coat open, hair wet, walking calmly as if the rain didn't bother her. Not reckless, just alive in her body, present in the moment. She didn't shrink into herself to avoid discomfort. She moved like she belonged exactly where she was, rain and all. That kind of embodiment communicates confidence without a word. Now here's the thing. Every single one of these habits is a choice. You're not born with them fully formed. You create them by the way you live, by the way you respond to life, by the way you choose to show up, even in small moments. Jung believed that most people never truly become themselves because they're too busy wearing masks they think the world will like. But the women who strip those masks away, who live in truth, who integrate their shadows and their light, those are the women the world remembers. You see, the magnetic woman is not magnetic because she's chasing anyone. She's magnetic because she's so anchored in who she is that she pulls the right people into her orbit without lifting a finger. And the people who can't match her, they quietly drift away, and she lets them go without bitterness. So the question is not, are you her? The question is, are you willing to become her? Because when you do, you'll find that attraction isn't something you chase. It's something you embody. And the moment you stop performing and start living in alignment with your deepest self, is the moment the world starts leaning toward you. I can still expand this ending into a slow, almost cinematic close, using Carl Jung's quotes, a reflective tone, and a final challenge to the audience that leaves them thinking for hours. That way, your video doesn't just inform, it lingers. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not to become who the world told you to be. Not to become a watered-down version of yourself that fits neatly into other people's expectations. But to stand fully as the person you were meant to be. Whole, integrated, unapologetically yourself." Think about that for a moment. How many women do you know who are truly themselves? No masks, no exhausting performances, no quiet desperation to be liked. Very few, and that's why they stand out. Because authenticity is rare in a world built on imitation. These 6 habits: self-awareness, presence, sovereignty, authentic expression, depth, and embodied energy, are not trends. They are not tactics, they are timeless ways of being. They work across cultures, across eras, because they speak to something primal in the human psyche. Jung understood that we are drawn to wholeness, not perfection. Wholeness. Perfection is brittle. It breaks under pressure. But wholeness is unshakable. Wholeness can stand in the storm and not lose its center. Wholeness can be desired without being desperate, loved without being needy, admired without needing to be adored. When a woman becomes whole, she no longer asks, "How can I get them to choose me?" She asks, "Do I choose them?" Her standards change. Her boundaries sharpen. Her energy becomes a filter, quietly turning away what doesn't match her and drawing in what does. And here's the secret. When you start living this way, the world will notice. But the most important change won't be how the world treats you. It will be how you treat yourself. Because once you've tasted the freedom of living in full alignment, you'll never go back to chasing scraps of approval. Jung believed the unconscious mind responds to truth like a compass to the north. It knows when something is real, and when you are real, not polished for display, not packaged for approval, but real, the right people will find you. So I leave you with this question. If you stripped away every mask, every performance, every habit that came from fear instead of truth, who would you be? What kind of energy would you walk into a room with? What kind of people would you naturally draw toward you? Because the irresistible woman is not a fantasy. She's not a myth. She's you without the layers of doubt and pretending. She's you. Once you've done the work to return to yourself, and once you become her, you won't just turn heads. You'll turn hearts, and they won't forget you.